Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question comes to us straight out of the Judge Vault. In fact, I'm pretty confident that almost all of my colleagues will be asked a question very similar to this one at some point in their judging careers. Amy plays Supreme Verdict. Nick responds by playing Force of Will against it, pitching a brainstorm. At this point, Amy says, "Okay, that's fine. You can't counter it anyway." Nick says, "Oh yeah, that's right," and then tries to take back the Force of Will. At which point Amy says no way and calls for a judge. How do you rule? Okay, so the first thing that I want to bring attention to in this situation is that neither player has actually done anything or attempted to do anything against the rules. It is legal to play a counterspell against a Supreme Verdict. You can't counter the spell, but that doesn't mean you can't target it. This is in contrast to a situation where, for example, Nick might try to play a targeted removal spell against Amy's hexproof creature. In that case, there actually is a game rule that's being broken. And that's a very important distinction to make because there are certain situations that the Magic rules and policy documents specify that the judge can perform a backup to the point immediately before an error. So if we were dealing with the hexproof situation, that would be one of those cases where the judge would be authorized to back up. And so we would have a policy supported reason to back up to the point immediately before Nick tried to play his removal spell. On the other hand, we have no such situation going on here in the situation presented in the original problem statement. It was 100% legal for Nick to make that play. There's another situation where you might be able to do a backup where a player performs an action based on incorrect information that was supplied by their opponent. If the incorrect information is something you were supposed to have access to, then the judge would also be able to do a backup in that case. So, for example, if Nick would have asked Amy how many cards she had in her hand, and she said the wrong number, and Nick used that information as part of his decision-making process in whether he wanted to play his Force of Will or not, well, then the judge would also have some grounds to let him back that play up. Again, this is not what happened in the original problem statement, and based on the information presented there, I would say that there isn't anything that either player did that was against the rules. And accordingly, there isn't any policy-supported reason that the judge would allow a backup. There actually is one other thing that we would want to consider. A player is allowed to reverse their decisions in a game of Magic, even at competitive rules enforcement level. However, this policy is not applicable to the situation presented in the problem statement either. The reason for that is because players are not allowed to use their opponent's reactions to their plays as part of their decision-making process in whether they want to modify them. So this policy might be relevant if, for example, Nick would have played the Force of Will and pitched the brainstorm and adjusted his life total and then thought, hey, wait a second, it's not possible to counter this spell, so I want to take my counter spell back. On the other hand, in the situation presented in the original problem statement, Amy was the one who pointed out that the counterspell was not going to be effective. And so that makes a big difference in whether a judge would allow a backup to take place or not. If Nick would have come to this realization himself, without any sort of hint or reaction from Amy pointing out that fact, well, that way we would have a lot better chance in order for Nick to be able to take the playback. So with all of that being said, I would rule that Nick has to stand by the play that he originally made unless we had some of those other extenuating circumstances that we discussed previously. People make mistakes in games of Magic all the time, and unfortunately there has to be some point where we draw the line and hold people to those mistakes. In my opinion, this is one of those times. Now, that would be my ruling if we were having a situation happen at competitive rules enforcement level. If we had this happen at regular rules enforcement level, I would think a little bit differently. At regular rules enforcement level, the focus is on education and fun, not ruling the exact same way every time or expecting players to play in strict accordance with the rules. And so I want everybody to close your eyes and think about what they believe the most fun and educational way to resolve this situation would be. I think most of us are probably agreeing that letting Nick take it back is the clear answer. And so that would probably be my ruling if this were to happen at regular rules enforcement level, because I think it's just a lot more compatible with what we're trying to accomplish at that rules enforcement level. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.